Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Sherwood Shakeup. I'm Matt Weinglass. I'll be your host today. This is a dedication episode to our very, very good friend, Hollywood legend Ed Asner, who unfortunately passed away earlier last week. And we actually, shockingly enough, the timing couldn't be more odd because we actually had Mr. Asner, booked on the show today, scheduled to appear with us actually today, right now, where we were going to be discussing a new project that we got involved with. It's a very exciting project. We'll be talking about that project a little later. But in the meantime, we decided to restructure today's events for this episode, and we are dedicating the entire episode now to Ed, his life, his work obviously as an accomplished actor, but also as a humanitarian, and as his other family members call him, a humanist, which what we refer to him, because he was for the people, and he put his values of humanity above everything else. And that was very clear with how he lived his life through every day on the screen and off the screen. We were fortunate enough to meet Ed a few years back and got involved with him in some of our earlier projects. And we'll be going through those memories on this show in a little bit. But for now, what I'd like to do is bring in our co-host of the show, our social media director and producer, Barbara Wilder. Welcome, Barbara.
Hello.
Hi, Barbara.
Good to be here in such a special show we have today.
Yes, very true. I'm going to change this to that fun background here. Give me a second. There, that looks more cool. That's more fun.
Nice.
So how have you been, Barbara? It's been a weird week and a half.
It was a very very exciting week, and obviously, like, we had some very sad news, and that's why we're sitting here today. And I would like to ask you, how did you actually meet Ed? How did your relationship with Ed Asner start?
That's a very important question for me. I've actually been thinking about that. I've been thinking about the first time I did meet Ed, and it was actually back in 2014. So I guess it's about 7 years ago, and it was before I was able to bring Sherwood, the community as we know today of Sherwood Players and Sherwood Players Productions. It did not have any presence in LA. It was an idea from years back when I was in Santa Barbara, and we hadn't done anything with the name of anything. I was just a guy in LA trying to make things happen. And I was actually coming out of a really bad slump, to be honest. I was really, really coming out of a dark place and ready to jump back into the entertainment industry, the industry we all come here to dive into. And, it beat me up the first few years. But right around that time, I have to say it was 2013, 2014, where I made a commitment to myself to dive back into this industry. I joined an acting class, and I just wanted to get back up on that stage and get my blood flowing. And in this acting class, the teacher, he sometimes would bring in a special guest to speak to people. And he announced that he was going to have Ed Asner come in. And I quickly, I'd recognized the name, but I quickly looked him up and saw just this amazing resume. I mean, obviously we knew him from Elf and from Up, and of course his early work, Mary Tyler Moore Show, Lou Grant. I looked all that up just to be clear that I had the right Ed Asner. I was like, yeah, this guy. But the other thing that struck me was, I read a little bit on Wikipedia, read up a little bit more. I was like, wow, this guy has done some real activism, like real stuff, like for the people. And so for me, it was like, this was an opportunity to go, be part of a Q&A and ask some questions and see, about his career and all the other actors asking about his career. And when it was time for Q&A, I raised my hand, and I wasn't asking him about his role in Mary Tyler Moore, Lou Grant, or any of his, acting roles. I asked him about his work that he did in El Salvador. And the reason I asked about that is because I was working on a documentary at the time called Tupamaro. It was about a vigilante biker gang that originated in El Salvador and then moved to Venezuela. And we basically spent years documenting these guys. It was a very dangerous movie. And even at the time, we still hadn't finished the film. We were still working on how to structure this thing. And then just having this history from Ed and knowing that he had literally put his own name on the line for the people of El Salvador in the 80s. And to hear him tell that story, it was just unbelievable. I have to say, I mean, and we're talking about like the artist versus the activist. And they tell us in this industry, and especially today, they say, stop it with the politics, just focus on your work. Don't piss off the wrong people. Be quiet when it comes to, having something to say, just be quiet because your career, right? That's what they say. Be careful. If you rub someone the wrong way, that might not be good for your career. Well, what Ed did, he told this really amazing story that day. And I won't forget, I got to tell this because this is about first meeting him. And he told us the story when I asked him the question about his work. And he said, here's what happened. He was at a press conference in Washington, D.C. in the early 80s. I think it was 1982. And Lou Grant was like one of the top shows on TV at the time. And he'd won all these Emmys playing this character. And he was just on the up and up still. And so they were asking him, I think a reporter raises his hand and says, if you knew that the people of El Salvador were going to elect a communist leader, would you have done the work you did in there to help them with their voting rights? If you knew that was going to be the outcome.
Yeah.
And he goes like this. He goes, next question. And the next reporter started asking him about Lou Grant or something else.
Okay.
He said this to me. He goes, I couldn't get that first question out of my mind. The second reporter was just talking and I couldn't hear him. I just kept thinking about the first question. And he says, I interrupted him and I said, I got to go back to the first reporter. To go back to your question, sir, do I regret helping the El Salvadorian people choose a government for themselves? I do not, because they have a right to have whatever damn government they want. That's the people's right. And
right.
He said that, and he knew that was going to be the end of his career at that time. And it was. They canceled his show. They blackballed him for the next several years. And he told me that day, I don't regret that one bit. And if it's something if it's something you truly believe in and is worth fighting for, it's worth the personal sacrifice. I'll never forget that.
Wow, that's really impressive. Yeah. And so how did Ed come to work with you on Tupamaro?
That question, I got to tell you, Barbara, immediately after that story, and we took a little break, I went up to Ed to shake his hand the same day I'm meeting him. And I said to him, I was so nervous, my heart was pounding like this. And I said, my name's Matt Weinglass. I asked that question earlier, and I want you to know I'm in the middle of producing a film in Venezuela right now about the Tupamaros who came from El Salvador. And I want to know if it's possible that you would consider narrating this movie. And I wasn't even done with my sentence. He looks at me and he goes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I think like Ed was a lot of times like a real yes sayer and supporter of like artists, and especially independent artists. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I mean, he just said yes. I was like, if I got to send you something or give you a little more background. I think he just looked me in the eye and he knew that because I'd asked that question earlier that we were on kind of like the same wavelength. He understood that there must be some sort of courage involved for me and my team to even consider doing a movie like this. I mean, we're not doing it for the money. Obviously, documentary filmmaking, especially in dangerous circumstances, you're doing it because you want to tell a real story. And I think he saw that in me right away. And that was where our relationship, that was where it began, right there. So.
Right. And I think we want to actually show a clip of Tupamaro, but before we do that, like, we have a few people already like in the chat. Steve Brock is here. He's like, I am in the YouTube chat. Let me know. Alameda is here. Hey guys, Matt, Ed, loved you a lot. Weinglass. And then we have Pimenton Studio.
That's Fernando. Yeah.
That's Fernando. Oh, hi, Fernando. Yeah, if you're here and you're watching live right now, just write us in the chat so we know you're here.
We really appreciate Steve. Thank you for coming on. Alameda, thank you so much. And Fernando, and anybody else you guys want to throw a comment in, Barbara, we'll definitely get your comment in for sure. Exactly.
Do we want to show a little clip of Tupamaro?
Absolutely. I'm going to put the clip up, but I have to be very clear about this, guys. Ed came into the studio to record the narration for the entire film. Mm-hmm. Also, while he was there, we asked him to record what we call it at the time, the sizzle reel. It's not the official trailer, the one that's on Amazon Prime right now. And by the way, yeah, the movie ended up winning a bunch of awards. It won the Beverly Hills Film Festival, Best Film, Best Foreign Film. It's on Amazon Prime right now. It's all over. It's on a network called Arte Network, so it's all over Europe. The movie did really well, and it's also about to come out on IMDb TV as well. So it's everywhere. It's called Tupamaro Urban Guerrillas. The working title was just Tupamaro when we recorded Ed that day. It's a good thing we got him to do this sizzle reel, and that's what I'm about to show you guys, because unfortunately the final cut, because for some reason there was a thing against full narration in a film at the time. In order to like get into these festivals, or for whatever the reason was, we ended up cutting his narration from the full film and just saving it on the sizzle. So I'm going to play the sizzle for you now. He ended up obviously we welcomed Ed into the production team, and we ended up giving him a executive producer credit on the film, of course. Is just for him putting his name on it, which was incredible. But luckily, we still have the sizzle reel. This is the original sizzle reel. I'm going to bring it up right now. And yeah, and let's let me get this up. Give me 1 second. And I'll go ahead and there we go.
Chino and his comrades gather in a safe house on the outskirts of Caracas, the capital city of Socialist President Hugo Chávez's Venezuela, and one of the most dangerous places on earth. The agenda of the meeting, weapons check, and to discuss the operational plan for that night's patrol. Their objective? Locate a local gang of narco dealers and execute them in what Chino calls social cleansing.
Enfrentar y frenar al narcotráfico que viene haciendo estragos en el seno de la sociedad venezolana.
Alberto Chino Carillas lives and breathes revolution. He and his Marxist group, the Tupamaros, are ready to kill or be killed to defend a revolutionary process.
Alguien que vende droga no tiene derecho, y alguien que incluye droga, que incluye vida de niños, de ancianos, de jóvenes, no tiene derecho a nada, a la vida. Bam, bam.
The Tupamaros are at war with the narco-traffickers, and despite their best efforts to keep the neighborhood clean and safe, the drug gangs are wreaking havoc on the community. Their latest victim was an innocent young man.
En ese momento había 5 funcionarios que estaban ahí. La situación.
Mentira, todo.
Yo entiendo la situación por la que se está pasando.
The people in the community do not trust the local police, so the Tupamaros carry out their own form of justice.
Desde que nos enterramos perfumes a mi sobrino. Tu muerte será vengada.
Hay mucha ansia de poder. Hay muchos grupos que quieren el poder y no pueden porque Chávez es el gran líder del aire, ¿no?
Unos grupitos por allí que dicen ser revolucionarios, pero actúan en contra de la revolución. Que dicen apoyar a Chávez, pero están apuñaleando a Chávez por la espalda.
Wow. What a great sizzle reel. Yeah, a great documentary. Like, everybody should watch it. Great narration from Ed. I'm just looking at the comments, and Alameda has a question. She asks, the Lou Grant show was #1 at the time. Ed was brave and bold enough to say the people of El Salvador should be able to choose their own government.
I don't want to say it was the #1 at the moment. It had been #1. It was certainly on the top 10. The point is, it was a successful show. He was regularly winning Best Actor. Now let me also be clear about this. Ed has the most Emmy wins for any male actor in the history of TV. Okay. On top of that, he's the only actor to have won an acting award for the same character, both in a comedy and in a drama.
Oh, wow.
So the character of Lou Grant was introduced in the Mary Tyler Moore Show in a comedy, and he was winning Best Supporting Actor in that regularly, with Mary Tyler Moore winning Best Actress. Then the show shifted. The show ended, and they took the character, kind of similar as we know, like they took Frasier out of Cheers and made a Frasier show. They did that with Lou Grant first, but it became a drama. And so then he started winning Best Actor for Lou Grant. And so, as Alame is asking, yes, the show was, I can't say for sure #1 at the time, but it was certainly top 10 at the time. That they just canceled it. They just said, it's done. He's done. And he did that.
And then after you worked with Ed, he basically stayed a member of our community. I mean, I have seen him myself a lot of times in our Sherwood Players events, and you're just like working on the Confession movie.
Yeah. So Ed's been part of a few other projects of ours since then. We've had as you said, he kind of got integrated into the community. He came to be a guest speaker for us at one of our first Spectrums, where we did this up in North Hollywood back in, I think, 2015 or 2016. I think it was right around there. He came in and told his story to the group, and it was awesome. And it felt like he was then kind of becoming part of the community. We have worked with him on several projects since. Well, I don't want to say several, but a handful of ones that we had to do, just like with Tupamaro. We had to sit him down and say, Ed, here's the purpose of this piece. Do you believe in it? Would you want to put your name on it? So that happened a few more times. I'm not going to get into those right now because
we get to them later, but there were just a few. Exactly.
There were a few, but the project we want to focus on right now and tell people about is the latest one.
Yes.
That Ed came on board with just this past year. It's called Confessions of a Union Buster. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to bring in, we have a very special guest with us. We have Troy Alexander with us. He is going to tell us, he's the screenwriter of the script, Confessions of a Union Buster. And he's going to come in right now. Welcome, Troy, to the show.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
So Troy, and your pen, I'm sorry, your pen name is TJ Alex.
Yes,
right?
yes, it's the name I write under.
That's your pen name. Okay. Very cool. Troy, this was, I gotta say, when you first contacted me about this project, I think it was just maybe a less, how long ago was this?
Well, it had to have been less than a year ago. I would say it's probably been about late September, early October, sometime in there.
So people know Troy is a longtime union worker himself, and he and I actually met first in 2004, working with the SEIU on the presidential campaign for John Kerry at the time.
Yeah, and we ended up losing that one. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
It was a losing effort, but we fought hard. And then they had stationed us all. We were out in Detroit and then in Miami, I believe, out during
Fort Lauderdale, I think.
Fort Lauderdale. Oh, that's right. South Beach, whatever. Oh yeah, Fort Lauderdale Beach. That was a tough loss. But I would like to pass it to you, Troy. That you tell people how you got into union work and how you were able to get, your interest in your hands on this script that we now have, ready to make this film.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll have to take you all the way back to around 2003, and you may hear it in my voice. I grew up in Texas, and in Texas, there's not a lot of union stuff going on. I mean, it's a very anti-union state. And when you grow up in Texas, you kind of grow up in that environment, right? And so I was working at a place, I guess, well, it's the Target Distribution Center, one of their distribution centers. And the union was trying to come in. And of course, I'm from Texas, so I know very little about all this. But at one point, I caught the company lying about the union. And when I realized they were being dishonest about things, I decided to start researching it. And what I discovered is that very little of what I knew about the labor movement was true. Growing up in Texas, and a lot of my education came from the book Confessions of a Union Buster. And so around 2004, I guess, early 2004, I reached out to the writer of the book, Marty J. Levitt. And he told me, it sounds like you need to go into union work. And so he was the one who first told me to try it. I tried throughout Texas. It's nearly impossible to find union work in Texas. And so I ended up moving to the East Coast, and that's where you and I met, because the first job I found was working on that presidential campaign. And so, you fast forward quite a few years, and I worked with unions for about 3 years, living in New York City, one of the largest unions in the country, 1199, a healthcare union there.
That's right.
I ended up moving back to Texas to marry my college sweetheart, and we've had 3 kids. I've been here ever since. But I tried getting union work here. It's still impossible. They look at you like you got 2 heads when you try to ask them if you can organize with them. It just doesn't happen. But anyway, about a year ago, I get online because I couldn't find my copy of Confessions of a Union Buster. So I decided I was going to get online and buy another copy. And I've discovered that it had been out of print for about 14 years. And you couldn't get it. The only way you could get a copy is to buy it used for about $50. And it just didn't sit right with me, because I thought it was a very important book. And to be clear, when the book came out, it was an important book, and it kind of shook the industry. But a lot of the people in the industry didn't like it, because it talks about a man who spent 20 years fighting unions, and he confesses his sins, so to speak. And so a lot of union people refused to buy it, and because they didn't want to put money in his pocket. And so he was a controversial person back when the movie came out, or when the book came out. So when I found out it was out of print, I decided to reach out to him again to find out if I could print it for him, if I could republish it for him, because I write books and things, and I publish my own books. And lo and behold, I found out that he passed away literally months after he and I talked on the phone.
Oh, wow.
So I reached out to the company who printed it, found out they no longer had the rights. And after a while, I found a lady named Terry Conroe Tazinski. She was the co-writer, listed as the co-writer of the book. The fact is, she actually wrote the whole thing. She she was a journalist at the time, and she quit her career and spent 5 years on this book. So I reached out to her. She said, yes, let's go ahead and get this thing reprinted and republished, which I was thrilled, because this was a book that changed my life, and I was going to have an opportunity to put it back out into the world. And now, since he's passed away, there's no reason for anyone not to buy it. It is an important book. It details lots of things that people need to know about the labor industry. And so, but it was in those conversations I was having with her that she told me that back in 1995, the book was published in 93. She said back in 1995, Ed Asner tried to turn it into a film. And I didn't tell her at the time, but I'm in the back of my head, things are churning, and I'm thinking, well, I happen to know a guy who knows Ed Asner, and because I had seen you posting a lot of stuff about Ed on your Facebook page and things. So I knew you had a relationship with him. And so I reached out to you, and that's kind of how things got started. Now, apparently back then, she told me, and this wasn't surprising at all, Marty Levitt was in a lot of legal trouble at the time. And that's when Ed was trying to get the movie made, he was going, I think she said through HBO. And whenever his legal issues came out, they just dropped it. And so nothing ever came of it again. But now, he's gone, and those troubles are gone. And so I'm hoping that it can be a successful project.
So, and I'll pick it up from here, Troy, because when you asked me about Ed, I was like, well, absolutely, I can reach out to him. But I wanted to know more about the project first, because it's one thing to be like, hey, I got a movie, whatever. It's another thing to be like, well, what's going on in this film? What is this? What is the purpose of this film? And why was Ed so passionate about this? And I found out right away when you sent me a copy of the book. I read it. I mean, this thing is phenomenal. And I have to say, like, just going into the heart of where the corruption comes from, and the guy Marty Levitt basically admitting everything on paper, but not just admitting it, warning us. He's warning us on the page about what to look for when someone is coming in to basically, make money off of the destruction of workers, off of their livelihood, make a ton of money off of destroying towns, destroying families, destroying people's lives. That was on the page. And what you did brilliantly, Troy, is you took what was in the book and you put it into a fantastic screenplay. And I just got to say, like, I'm so glad you called me about this, because I was able to go over to Ed's place personally last Christmas, and this is the last time I saw him. It was an incredible opportunity to go over there and ask him face to face if he would be part of this project again, knowing that we had an ability to put this together now and get union backing, and not have all those legal troubles that he had back in the 90s with HBO. And he's, of course, I mean, I don't want to say of course, but he said, yes, I will put my name on this. I will be executive producer of this project. And then what did you do, Troy? You wrote us a little.
Yeah. I suggested that if we're going to have any shot of raising money through the labor movement, that we might need to let people know that Ed's on board. And so I wrote up a little, I guess, kind of a commercial for it, ask you if he would, make this little video for us.
Well, I would like to play the video right now.
Yes.
Cool. Because we haven't. I mean, let's just be clear with people. We haven't officially launched the crowdfunding campaign yet, but we are in process of putting our pitch together and getting the right producers on board and getting the right team together. Also, just kind of getting the pieces in place before doing it. But we've had this video since Christmas, and I think it'd be really appropriate right now for people to see what Ed did for us. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's bring it up. I'm going to mute us first. Give me 1 second.
Hi, everybody. Ed Asner here. I want to let you in on a project I'm working on. 25 years ago, I tried to make Confessions of a Union Buster into a movie, but the plans fell through. Since then, the book has gone out of print. But with the help of Matt Weinglass of Sherwood Players and Troy Alexander of Zanland Films, we will finally be able to bring this important story to the big screen. The movie will detail all of the horrible things union busters do to stop people from forming unions. Once the movie is made, unions all over the country will have a new tool in their efforts to organize workers and help hard-working Americans earn a better living for their families. I need your help to make it happen. I hope you'll donate to bring this passion project of mine to life. Please, while I'm still young, help me get this movie made. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're just so fortunate to have him align with us on this movie. And I know there's a little joke in there about before it's too late, but I mean, it kind of hits you right in the heartstrings there. I don't know.
Yeah. And you and I, whenever you and I talked about today's show, we talked about it, what, 3 weeks ago? We were talking about putting this thing together. And of course, then it wasn't a tribute to Ed Asner. It was just about talking about this project, and Ed was going to be on the show. I tell you, it nearly broke my heart when I heard that he had passed away, because today was going to be the day I was going to meet one of my heroes,
Oh.
And it was going to be something that, it was going to be for a project that I was working on, that I'd written, and to be, and just to watch that video again, makes me feel good, because even though it wasn't much, I wrote that little bit of something, and the great Ed Asner spoke words that I wrote, and that's an amazing thing to me. I got to show you this shirt. This is for Elf, and since it's Ed Asner's tribute today, I decided to wear my Elf shirt, which normally only comes out at Christmas time.
Yeah.
But, he's saying, "Oh my God, Santa," and of course we know who Santa was. But look, this movie, Confessions of a Union Buster, it's important because it was important to Ed, and it's been important to Ed a long time. You talked about his activism, but in the labor movement, he was a god. He had been working in the labor movement for 50 years. He was the former president of SAG. And he's just been involved with the labor movement for 40 or 50 years now. And, the entire movement was shaken whenever he passed away. And so this film, the fact that he is lending his name to it, we bear a lot of responsibility for making sure that it's the story, that it carries on this amazing legacy.
Right.
And I don't take that lightly at all.
Not at all. And I feel that there's extra heart that's put up behind this project now, Troy, that I think we have to run with. We have to figure out how to make this thing go. And I think there's a lot of people getting interested right now, and even in this last week and a half. I wish they'd shown interest earlier, but that's okay. Now they see Ed Asner put his name on this for a reason, and like he does with any project. And I want to be very clear. This is not a man who said yes to anything. He said, in fact, I don't think he really said yes to. It was never about a paycheck for him. I mean, I hope I'm not going too far to say this. I just my suspicion the time I've spent with him, it was never about a paycheck. It was about a cause. It was about the right people. That's who he said yes to. It was the people, the heart of those people, and the cause behind the project. And certainly Confessions of a Union Buster fit those check those boxes. And so we have to basically we're going to make this film happen for Ed now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think Ed was also very lucky to find you guys. So you like fulfilling his a very big wish he had during his life, and so thank you for that. Alameda said, Troy, I believe you'll get it made. Love your passion.
I hope so.
Very, very cool. Thanks for the support from everybody in Sherwood. Right now, I would like to bring in another guest. If you guys, Barbara, Troy, if you guys want to hang around,
Sure.
I would like to introduce one of our producers, or one of our newest associates, partners, friend of mine, who we're working on a few other films with right now. And he's been in the Hollywood business for several years and can tell you stories of stuff that you wouldn't believe that he knows. But I'm going to bring him in right now to say a few words about Ed. Here he is, our friend, Randy Turrow. Welcome, Randy.
Hey, thank you.
Hi, Randy.
Hello, how you doing?
Hey, I really enjoyed everything you're saying. By the way, I started reading the script. You're a good writer. It got me right from the beginning. It got me, intrigued with it, and it does capture a lot what I know about Ed. I just want to talk about. I've met him a number of times, so I want to talk about 3 different areas. I was just trying to remember where he was particularly poignant. One was I was at one of these political dinners, and Ed was with another well-known actor, and they just started improvising, and his comedy was incredible. They were talking about current state of affairs, and they were just improvising. I thought, wow, these guys should be stand-up comedians. And because he would always come from his heart, it's something to echo what you were just saying, Matthew, that, Ed would only say things that made him strong, right? And he would only do those things that he could speak of with honor. That's what I learned about him. I worked on a TV movie of the week. We used to have those, obviously, and they're not as much around anymore. I guess they call it now Netflix, and all that. But or Amazon or Hulu, one of those. But I think it was called Kate's Secret, and he played a doctor. That was, and I'm in the director's guild as a production manager. At the time, I was like an additional second AD, like day playing, and Ed, like everyone, when you're at that low end, everybody, everything falls down on you, all the pressure and different things, or at least you're not treated at the same status as the upper end people. But it was interesting that Ed recognized that and walked up to me. He's one of the stars of the show. At least he was. I think Meredith Baxter was on there. He was on a TV series at the time. But he came up to me and he treated me with a lot of dignity and respect. Even though I was the low end on the totem pole there, he recognized that, if you're like, how do you say it? Like, if you're on a boat, you can't sink one end of the boat without sinking the whole boat. You looked at that like the country, and that's how he made me feel really elevated anyways. And I was really always appreciative of that. The third thing, oh yeah, I want to talk about another area that he was in. I saw him out here. I live in Malibu. He came and did a play. And it was amazing how the energy he gave. I mean, it was probably like 5 to 10 years ago, but it's still, he's in his 80s. I wonder how Ed's going to do. I haven't seen him for so long, or at least, since when I first met him. And he was amazing on stage and lit up the whole room and everything. And he comes from a place, in his heart, like, where he just speaks the truth, in the service of love, if you will. And he would always dare, to be dangerous. He would dare to be truthful. He would dare to articulate himself and express what he really justified, what would justify his life. So I just wanted to share those few things. And I appreciate you bringing me on to be able to express that about a really, I guess in the world we have I look at 2 different types of people. You're either indecent or you're decent. He's definitely one of the more decent people I've ever met.
Wow, thanks for that story. Yeah, I mean, it's been there's just been a flood of people coming out in this last week and a half talking about Ed and what he's meant to them and all the humanitarian work he's done and just being a good guy all around. And like that's the kind of thing I think it makes for a good legacy. And those are the things I don't think, Randy, you and I talked about this once. We don't need to think about that. We just need to be in the moment and do what's best for us right now. But ultimately, look what happens when you do the right thing and you work on behalf, like you said, on behalf of love and just being a good person. Look what happens at the end. Look what happens. A legacy is created and people have nothing but good things to say. And I think that there's an example he sets that we all need to follow. We all need to, especially in this crazy industry that we find ourselves in. This is like I think that when we talk about Hollywood, Hollywood has this. It has this reputation of being something that's it's corrupt. It's negative. It's got this unsettling feeling to it. And I think that when you have somebody like Ed come through and we have an opportunity to meet him and have him in our lives, even just for a moment, it sets the rest of us straight. It sets the rest of us artists that are here to do something important, here to tell good stories and here to like do something memorable, that we have to fight against that reputation that Hollywood has. We have to say, we can be good people, do the right thing and be successful, tell good stories and make people feel good about it. So they're going to say good things when we're gone. So let me take the mute off here. Sorry about that. There. Okay. So sorry, we were having a sound problem earlier. Yeah.
I just want to share something with you, which I think maybe is also pretty interesting. I got an email recently, and it's Michael Moore said that, he sent out that email, and what he said is when I was making my first film, Roger and Me, I was broke, really broke. So nobody from Flint wrote to some famous people to ask them for help with a movie, and only one responded, Ed Asner. And he responded with the words, "I don't know you, kid, but here's $500. Said the note attached to the check. Sounds like it'd be a great film. I was an auto worker once." I just thought this was a great story to share.
That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, so we are, if you guys want to stick around, Troy, Randy, or you're welcome to stick around. We're gonna, I'm actually gonna tell another story about Ed, and we're gonna play another clip of something we did together. Here, you guys are welcome to hang out with us for a little bit longer. Yeah,
sure.
Cool.
I want to hang out, but I'm producing a movie now, and I have some obligations that they're calling me. Actually, it's dealing with the union involved thing, so I have to deal with one of these, the situation that we're contemplating now. But I really appreciate hearing everything everyone was saying. I was in the back room there, and I think Ed got credit on Roger and Nick. I remember seeing that. By the way, I saw that it said, special thanks to Ed Asner.
Thank you for the $500.
So,
I mean, that's great. So he was there. He knew Michael Moore had something important to say, and he put his name on it. That's very cool. Very awesome.
Thank you. Nice to meet all of you.
Nice meeting you. Thank you.
Nice. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Randy. We'll talk to you later. Wow, very cool.
Before we move on, I'd like to, in case people are curious, the book that I'm going to be republishing isn't out yet. It's supposed to be coming out hopefully end of October. I'm still putting all that together. It's going to be a better edition than it ever was because it's going to have an appendix section that helps organizers organize workers. It's got a new foreword by a guy named Bob Mullenkamp, who actually fought Marty Levitt on several union campaigns and got to know Marty personally after he stopped being a union buster, and he's actually the one who convinced him to write the book. So it's going to be a different book than was originally published. I just don't want people to try to rush out and buy it because it's not out yet, and I don't want people buying the wrong thing. So the one that's out there right now is just used copies of the old edition. So
no, it's good to know. Good to know, Troy. And yeah, it's great. It's really great that Randy. So I was actually had my fingers crossed that Randy was able to read the script, and he sounded like he was very impressed. So Troy, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I was quite happy to hear that. I've been nervous so far. You're the only one I know of who's read it, so I've been nervous about that. But somebody on here, Alameda, Matt talked about the cast. Maybe you should bring up the fact. I kind of wrote. There's a part in here I'm hoping you'll get to play, if it stands with the script as it is, because in real life there was this man who was a very tall person. He kind of refers to him as a giant, and I thought, well, I know somebody that'd be great for that role. So I'm hoping that
Well, let's talk about the cast, because I think it's important people know that, correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, but when in the 90s, when Ed was pitching this to HBO, the idea was that Ed was going to play.
Probably, because when you see pictures of Marty Levitt from back then, and back in the 90s, Ed would have been a really good person to play that role. So I imagine that's how it was going to play out.
Perfect casting. And now I like to say this because we have targeted a few actors now. I don't want to get into all of the casting choices right yet because we're still developing this. But let's throw the one name out there that I think we've been having discussions about, and it might come true. But we're looking at for the lead role now. We're looking for Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah. When you first mentioned that name, my first thought was, well, he's just too old. I mean, he wouldn't work out for that role. But then I started researching it, because you remember that conversation. I said, I don't know if that'd work. But then I looked online after we talked on the phone. I saw current pictures of him. He looks 10 years younger than he is. And he has an easy face for makeup to make him look even younger. And then Marty Levitt back then looked 10 years older than he was. So I sent you a message that night, said, you know what? I'm on board with this. He's actually a very good choice. Of course we're reaching. We don't know if that can happen, but yeah, he's a great choice for that.
Hey, with Randy Turrow's connections and with him on the team, I think we have a chance at a lot of things with this thing. Well, one step at a time, but we're in a really good intersection right now. It's a point of reflection and to see where we're at. And I just love that. Oh, we just got the I guess you'd call that the temp poster is up on IMDb now. Mm-hmm. Speaking of IMDb, did anyone happen to notice who hit the #1 spot today on the star meter?
I noticed it when you put it on Facebook.
Yes.
Our friend Ed Asner is at the #1 spot on the star meter this week.
Wow.
Fantastic.
That's fantastic.
That's incredible. And we don't necessarily know how they calculate that, but it definitely means a lot of eyes are on him right now. It's we can
I'm
gather.
sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me just point out a few comments here. Leslie says, "Hi all. It was such a pleasure meeting him. I can't wait for you guys to make the movie."
Leslie,
Leslie,
with us, with me, we went together that day to get Ed on camera, and she actually held the camera for us, and she shot that. Awesome. And it was her first time with filming something with us, and so it was just really cool that she got to still she was part of that experience. And we didn't know. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be the last time you see someone. We think we think about, right, with the older people in our lives, that crosses our mind a lot of the times, right? You're at, what if you're at a family occasion, or especially during this whole COVID time. I mean, you think about the last time you might see someone. So every moment is important. In that particular moment, and I bring it up again because you couldn't tell from the clip, but we hung out a little bit, and Ed put on his Santa hat. He put on the elf hat, and we took a little picture together, and it was really special and sweet. And of course, just to be totally blunt, like that thought is in your mind when you're saying goodbye. And we said, thank you, Ed. Thank you for everything. We're getting in the car. Me and Leslie are leaving. That thought is in your head. Could this be the last time we see each other? And
well, just 2 weeks, I guess, what was it? 2 weeks before he passed away, you and I were on the phone talking about this project, saying we need to get this done in time because we want him to see it, and we didn't know his time was that short.
Before you read the next comments, Barbara, I have to say, speaking of these last 2 weeks, and yes, if people are just joining us now, if they weren't aware, and this is our Remembering Our Friend Ed Asner episode special on the Sherwood Shakeup. Thank you for being here with us. The sad news is, and we announced it earlier, I'll say it again, is that we had Ed scheduled to be on the show today. That was something that we were all looking forward to. I know, Troy, you were looking forward to it more than anyone because it was an opportunity. His daughter, Liza, our good friend Liza Asner, she told us that she was going to have him read the script the night before. That was supposed to be yesterday. And he'd be ready to come on for 5 to 10 minutes today. And that's something that was going to happen. And so I have to say that it's unfortunate that we were off by a week and change. But here's what did happen, and I'll talk about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can't remember the exact date, but I called the house. They had the landline, and so you don't know who's going to answer. And I called just to kind of confirm what was going to be happening today's show. And Ed answered the phone. And so the last conversation I had with him was on a phone call just a couple weeks ago. And he goes like, I didn't know if Liza or who would answer the phone, but he's like, hello. And I was like, oh, hey, Ed, how's it going? He goes, who's this? And I said, it's Matt Weinglass. He goes, Matt Weinglass, how are you? And I was like, great. And he's like, you're calling for Liza? I was like, yes. And so he goes, Liza, Matt Weinglass. And so she gets on the phone and she's like, hey, Matt, I just want you to know it's a really, really cool that Ed knew you right now, because he was some of the it was hard for him to remember certain things, and he said that was really cool. That was really awesome that he knows that you're calling, and I want to make sure that he reads the script right before you guys go on next Tuesday. And so that was something that we had planned. So it's a very emotional story. I know it's got happy and sad all mixed in, but here we are today, and we have our memories. It's what we have, and we can talk about it and share everything.
I think Leslie says it best. She just wrote, missed him today, but he's here through his legacy, spirit, and the influence he left on all of us. Rest easy, Ed. That's pretty beautiful.
Thanks, Leslie.
And Alameda says Richard Dreyfuss is a phenomenal actor, amazing actor to play the part Ed wanted to play. And we have one more comment from Steve. I always felt that if you met him, you always got the real him.
Yeah, Steve, that's very, very true. And Steve was, been part of our group this whole way, and was there with us when Ed would make appearances, and he's made several throughout these last few years. And we had a strong 7 years relationship. And when I look at it and I look back, I think I just feel so privileged, to have had this opportunity to be part of, have Sherwood players be part of Ed Asner's legacy, even in those final years, just that final chapter that we got to play such an important part for us, a very important role, probably very small for him in his long, long career. But it's such an honor to have, even just participated even slightly with him. So I'm forever grateful for that.
Right. We have one more comment from Madwin Arts. Who is that?
I think that might be David Madwin.
I'm glad we could pick it up on an up note.
Reference to up, of course. Thanks, David. Thanks.
So if any of you are watching and you haven't send us a message in the chat, do it now. We'd like to read something from you in the chat.
Absolutely. In the meantime, actually, I have a memory I want to play, and I think if anyone's watching from Sherwood, which I know they are, or they'll be watching later, but we had a very, very amazing opportunity to have Mr. Ed Asner participate with us in our very first audiobook project called The Barefoot Spirit. The owners and the creators of Barefoot Wine, they contacted us. They have a book called The Barefoot Spirit, a New York Times bestseller, and they contacted us, Sherwood Players, and said, would you put together a theatrical audiobook for our, to release with our book? It's about the making of Barefoot Wine and the struggle of they call it the hardship, hustle, and heart, how it built America's #1 wine. And I said, absolutely, let's put something together. And the book obviously is incredible, and we were so happy to be part of it. And I had this idea. There was this character in The Barefoot Spirit. It was a very important character. It's a character that they interact, that they in real life. Michael Houlihan, the creator of Barefoot Wine, walks into Lucky's supermarket in the Bay Area, and right into the back room. And the owner, his name is Don Brown, and he sits down with Don Brown and says, "Will you please put our wine in your store?" And he says, "No way. You have to go make a name for yourself first." And he's like, "How are you going to do that?" And it's this guy that basically challenged them to figure out how the conundrum of business, the conundrum of how do you get something to be seen if the people that can help you do that aren't going to do that until you're known. It's this oxymoron in the entrepreneurial world of business. And this story's told very well. I thought Ed Asner was perfect to play this role of Don Brown. And of course, not of course, but luckily he said yes. And we brought him in the studio, and we did this scene together. I'm going to put this up right now for you guys. It's a scene, we call it The First Fire. So give me 1 second and I'll put this up.
Yeah, Houlihan, what do you want?
Michael put a bottle of Barefoot Cabernet and one of the Sauvignon Blanc on Brown's desk.
We bottled the wine and want you to see it.
Brown picked up the bottle of red and looked it up and down. Then he did the same with the white.
This is what you asked for. There aren't any leaps or hills or rivers. It's a label she can read from 4 feet away. The logo is the same as the name. It's in plain English and easy to pronounce. It's a name she'll remember and a logo she won't forget.
Michael was proud of what they'd done, in the way of a student with a good report card. Barefoot was unique, interesting, and fit everything that Brown and the others said would sell. The wine, he knew, was terrific. The label was friendly and fun. What's not to love, he thought. Brown kept looking at the bottles. He didn't say anything. The silence was uncomfortable, but Michael sat quietly. Brown looked at the bottles again, but said nothing. Michael figured it was just Don Brown being Don Brown, make everyone sweat.
So, Don, how many truckloads do you want?
Brown put the bottle down at his desk and looked at Michael like he was from Mars. Michael couldn't have gotten a worse look from Brown if he had clucked.
Are you crazy? I can't buy this. Nobody knows this brand. Nobody's ever seen or heard of Barefoot.
It's everything you asked for.
Yeah? So what? That doesn't matter. No one's gonna buy something they never heard of. You gotta advertise it. If you're willing to spend $1 million on TV ads, I'll buy it from you.
We don't have that kind of advertising budget.
In truth, they had no advertising budget. There wasn't $100 for ads.
Then you gotta go make a name for yourself. You gotta go sell it to every mom and pop store in every corner till everyone knows what Barefoot is.
Michael felt like he just got hit by a brick.
That'll take years.
Well, Houlihan, you better get started.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was fun. That's really cool. It was so fun putting that together. And shout out to Alameda for the narration on that. Also, the original music, our musician, our composer, Tyler David Gilbert, he wrote that the song you guys are listening to was a theme song within the Barefoot Spirit world, where he pinpointed this character, Don Brown, and wrote this theme song for him. So that that was specifically to capture the attitude. And Ed was always known for that. He's always been known for that attitude, that roughness, that roughness. So we incorporated that into the music, and you can kind of feel that as you're listening. So that was what. Yeah, it was fun doing that. Okay, do we have any other?
I think move on, and we'll be excited to hear from you and about the project Crash.
Oh, that's right. Well, let's talk about Crash. So if you guys were, Barbara, I'm gonna bring you down just a little bit here. Wait, I don't think that's Barbara. Give me 1 second, guys. Yeah, that was Troy. It's okay. I fixed that. Okay. So for Crash, yes. Last week, if you guys were watching, we had our animator and co-director of Crash, the animated series, Fernando Mendez, was on with us, and we went through the animation process. And for those who did not see that clip of Ed Asner, I wanted to intro that to you guys because we want to play this for you guys today, because it was actually, I have to tell you guys, during our Barefoot Spirit recording session where Ed came in and recorded, he recorded the Don Brown character. I asked him on the side, I don't know if this was professional of me, but I figured I known him well enough by then. And I was like, God, I just hope he just gives me a second on this. So it was just I did a little, what they call an elevator pitch. So I did it to Ed. It was like right before we started recording Barefoot. So he came over to the studio. I put him aside. I was like, hey, Ed, I don't know if you know this, but we have this other project kind of on the side. We don't have funding for it. We're just kind of it's like donations only. We don't have no sales plan, no release plan. But the idea is this: it's a superhero that stops people from texting and driving, and it's called Crash. And we wanted to know if it was possible that you could voice a very small little cameo of yourself. So we have Ed Asner playing Ed Asner in Crash. It's like literally like 3 lines. It's just, is there any way we could just kind of squeeze this in and it's for a good cause? And he goes, let me see the script. And I said, yeah. So he looks at it, and it was like, I got it all on one page, right? Because just the 3 lines, I want to make this as easy as possible. Just the 3 lines. He goes, all right, that. He's looking. I had it all highlighted for him. 1, 2, 3 on the page. He looks over and down and he goes, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Yeah. So we worked it in on the same day. So we recorded him doing the one you guys just heard, Don Brown, and then we went to Crash. And it was so awesome because we were able to say, Ed Asner, obviously, a man of the people. He just having fun with this character of himself playing. And I'll set it up for you guys. I'm going to play this in a second. But this is a later episode in the season where Crash has been cast as an actual film. So there's a film within a film. And it's being premiered at the drive-in, similar to the plot of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, where they all gather at the drive-in to watch Crash on the big screen. And so we said that Ryan Reynolds is playing Crash, which he doesn't. I actually voiced Ryan Reynolds playing Crash, but we got the real Ed Asner to voice himself in this scene. So I'll go ahead and put this up here for you guys, and we'll check this out. Give me 1 second.
I don't care if he's already doing Gambit. I want Channing Tatum in the next Justice League movie. I don't care how you do it. Just make it happen.
I told you, man, no texting and driving. That means no cell phone at all. Understand? Next time, I keep it.
Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. Never again. Never again.
And one more thing. Slow down.
You are so cool.
All right, guys, welcome back. Sorry about that little delay.
Very nice.
Very nice. That was nice.
So yeah, no, it was just so awesome just having the opportunity to just just be able to call Ed up and say, hey Ed, we got something fun for you. Do it. He didn't say yes to everything. There were a couple of things I remember pitching him. He said no to. I won't get into those, but I want to be clear. He's not just a guy like, oh yeah, I'll do anything. It really had to have something of purpose, something of heart, something of importance. And it's very true. And that's why, Troy, I just think, going back to confessions really quick, I just think you should be really, really proud that, the coming to me and the two of us going to him together on this, it was a big deal. I think he said, yes, let's do this. It's a really, really big deal. And so I want you to be proud about that we were able to get that to happen.
Yes, definitely.
Let me read you one more comment from Steve. He says, I remember him voicing Granny Goodness in Justice League and also played Chief Jonah Jameson on The Amazing Spider-Man.
I didn't know that, Steve, but I guess Ed was into the superhero, supervillain stuff, just like we are, and that might be another reason why he was into Crash. And I'll point out Steve Brock voices a villain in Crash as well. So I like the reference, Steve, to Ed as doing villains. Actually, I don't think J. Jonah Jameson is not an actual villain, but he's an annoying character, right? In Amazing Spider-Man.
He's the newspaper guy.
He's the newspaper guy. And then Granny Goodness in Justice League, that's an actual villain, right? Is that correct?
I have no idea. I've never heard of that.
I think so. But but Steve does a villain for us. He does the villain of The Cell. He plays across from Crash. So so Crash, I'll just say Crash has not been released publicly. Our other projects have. So just to be clear, Barefoot Spirit is available on any audio platform, Audible, iTunes. You can go to it right now and check it out. It's called the Barefoot Spirit. Download the whole book. It's 10 awesome chapters of theatrical, cinema for the ears, as they say. And then of course Tupamaro, as we said earlier, the documentary we shot in Venezuela, that's available on Amazon Prime right now. It'll be coming out on IMDb TV very soon. Executive produced by Ed Asner. And those two. And then of course in development we have Confessions of a Union Buster, which we plan to bring to the big screen very soon. As soon as we get a yes from Richard Dreyfuss and we put this thing together. For sure. So, yes, Steve, he confirmed, yes, Granny Goodness worked for Darkseid, and we know Darkseid was a villain in Justice League. So, yes, yes, we have that in common. Steve, you have that in common with Ed. You both have voiced villains in superhero universes. So, very cool. So, if there's any other comments or anything else we missed, Barbara, are we good?
I don't think, there are a few, but they are now a little bit out of context. But everybody can just, I think the comments are still, you can still read the comments after when you watch the video again, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Anytime, check this out on YouTube and share you guys can share this link with anybody who you think would be interested in hearing about Ed and our personal relationships and some of the awesome stories we had to share for you today. It's been an awesome opportunity. I just want to say thank you to everybody to be part of this. Thank you, Barbara and Troy. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out Randy Turrow, who joined us earlier. Thanks to him for taking time to do that with us. And this has been fun. I like playing these clips and having a good trip down memory lane here for our pal Ed. Anything else you guys want to add before we sign off?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Just like have one last comment from Leslie. This was awesome. Troy, looking forward to meeting you soon.
You too. You too.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll be meeting on set when we start shooting.
Someday
soon, hopefully, when we start shooting Confessions.
Yes, I can't wait.
Okay, very cool. All right, guys. So I'll just say this one last comment for you guys, for everybody watching. Yes, this was our special. Usually our episodes don't go this long, but we had to spend a little extra time today talking about Ed, remembering our good friend Ed Asner. Next week we'll be back with the regular hour show, or less than an hour. We have our Clubhouse show. Usually we did not do this week because of the special, but we'll be back. Our special guest next week will be Gregory Blair, actor, writer, producer, director. We call him a quadruple threat. We'll be talking about multitasking in Hollywood. And then we'll be back on Clubhouse. We encourage you guys to join us on Clubhouse live every week at 3 o'clock Pacific, following our YouTube show, The Sherwood Shakeup. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And please, if you're watching this on a repeat, please, you can share this link with anyone you think that might be interested in hearing about the great Ed Asner and some of the awesome opportunities we had to work with him and have him be part of our lives, and hopefully us play a little part in his legacy, even just a little bit. It's been humbling. It's been amazing. So grateful, and we take Ed's lessons with us. We take his lessons of life with us, and we try to inspire others to do the right thing. Be about the people, and if the cause is worthy enough, the personal sacrifice is worth it. As he actually told me the first day I met him, it is worth it. It is worth it. If it means that much, that personal sacrifice is worth it. Okay.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Share our YouTube video. Even when you like restream the video, leave us comments. Leave us a lot of comments, and share it. Share it with Richard Dreyfuss. The message.
Yeah.
And thanks everybody who watched.
And go to sherwoodplayers.com for more updates on how you can get involved in our community. And we do have some in-person events coming up soon at our new theater, The Complex Hollywood, as well as some screenings and other special stuff we're going to be announcing soon. So take care, guys. And don't forget to hit subscribe and hit the bell button so you can get notifications for our next live. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Thank you.
You guys got it.